Welcome to Zambition, the channel on which we engage in dialogue with leaders from across sectors and generations. Greetings and welcome to Zambition. My name is Martin Kalungubanda, your host on this channel. This week, I have the privilege of being in dialogue with a business leader whose work ethic, whose values in life, whose faith are a big inspiration for me. Her name is Mrs. Stephanie Angomwile. Mrs. Angomwile is co-founder and chief executive officer of Stewards Globe Limited. It's a Zambian seed company trading as AfriSeed. Mrs. Angomwile brings over 9 years of experience, professional experience for that matter, in the seed industry. Prior to setting up her own business, Mrs. Angomwile worked as chief economist in the Ministry of Finance in Zambia. Together with her husband, they are involved in a lot of charitable works, but also works of faith. Her husband, Emmanuel, is also part of the business. He's co-founder of AfriSeed. They have 4 children. Mrs. Angomwile, welcome to Zambition.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be part of Zambition family.
And may I invite you to share with us your personal journey, the journey that has led you to where you are today. Include your background and your folks.
Thank you. My personal journey started in Mansa, where I was born, until my family moved to Lusaka, where I grew up with my 7 other siblings. For me, my journey is that of faith, courage, and I think self-discovery. Which also I think led to me being responsible for my siblings and also the people that God has put charge under me. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to share my story so that I can also inspire somebody out there that with God, nothing is impossible. Growing up as a child, right from primary school, I think I was one of the awkward girls. I think I didn't fit in with my peers, whereby I was always envying the most talkative girls, the most liked girls. So I was always in the background. So I always wished in my heart that I wish I could do something extraordinary that could make people laugh or make people happy. So growing up with my father gave me a lot of words of wisdom. Of course, my father was my hero at that time as a young girl. He inspired me and taught me words of wisdom to say, being the firstborn is a big responsibility. And whatever you do will be an example to your siblings. So those words stuck with me, and he always encouraged me that, my job, I'm not able to earn a lot. I have a diploma, but I'm not able to earn a lot. But for you, I want you to have a better life. I have a diploma, but I want you to get a university degree, even 5 degrees. So for him, that was like the pinnacle of it, or achieving something like 5 degrees. So even when I was growing up, unfortunately, my father passed on when I was about 17 years. And I thought like, my dream had come to an end of getting a university degree. But over time, thankfully, by the grace of God, an aunt showed up one day on my desktop, my doorstep, when we had just, finished the funeral arrangement, the burial and everything. And she said, I had a dream. Your father was telling me I have to take you in and raise you up until you finish school. At that time, it didn't make sense to me because, of course, my faith was young, and I couldn't believe that somebody could just dream and show up on my doorstep to say, I dreamt of your father telling me that I have to take you in and raise you up. That's how I grew up until I finished my grade 12. And thankfully, by the grace of God, I made it to university. At university, I was very excited because part of my dream had been achieved. And for me, what mainly also inspired me was the fact that I used to encourage myself to say, if my father had faith in me, I can do it.
Yeah.
So those words actually had an impact on me. So when I made it to university, it was like everything, doors opened. And thankfully, by the time I was in my third year, I met my husband, who's been, my everything. We've been married for the past 26 years now, with 4 children, like you mentioned. And from that time onwards, a lot of things began to unfold. I had a friend in my husband. I could confide in, I could cry, I could, think about, everything, discuss about everything that we were excited about.
And I just wanted to reflect. I just wanted to reflect on 2 lines, which I find most touching. That even when Dad passed on, when you were still very young, may his soul continue to rest in peace, somehow his wishes for you continued influencing you and inspiring you as you moved on in your education. But also amazing is the story of your aunt, who appears as if from nowhere, led by a dream, and offers to look after you. And isn't that part of the beauty of our extended system, that we are never complete orphans?
Exactly. We are never complete orphans. And I think God just brings people in your life that are important for that season. Because without my aunt showing up, I don't know where I would have been. And I can tell you, that time we were actually planning to move to the village. So we were actually in the process of, and those days when a parent dies, the family, particularly if the mother is not in any gainful employment, the only option for you is to pack your things and move to the village. So that was the only option we had. But before that could happen.
And moving back to the village quite often meant diminished opportunities.
Exactly, diminished opportunities. And for me, I felt like my dream was going to end because I didn't envision myself to end up in the village. Probably by this time I would have been married with 10 children. Probably I wouldn't even have finished my grade 12 and made it to university. But like what you've said, the extended family system plays a big role. And this is a rare commodity in the era that we are living in. Everybody is looking out for themselves and not caring about what the next person will eat or how they will survive. And for me, that has also inspired us, me and my husband, to be able to invest in families that don't have the same opportunities as we do. Our children, of course, they've got the best opportunities, but there are other children who are not even related to us, who couldn't make it to these colleges and universities. And thankfully, God has given us the ability to invest in their education as well.
Thank you. Mrs. Angomwile, if you were to pick an image or object that best describes who you are, what would that image or object be?
For me, I felt to pinpoint where I fit in. I think I'm all over the place. I envision myself to be an eagle because for me, challenges are an opportunity for me to grow. I don't want to be like the children of Israel who were complaining literally about garlic, about missing things from Egypt. And you know the story of how they ended up 40 years in the wilderness. So for me, complaining actually delays your blessing. But once you have a challenge, the most important thing is to see an opportunity for you to grow. And I see myself as an eagle because an eagle has the ability to soar above the storm. And also I see myself as a book. I'm not an extrovert. So you need to get to open me and read me, ask questions before I can begin to share myself. So that kind of object, what I describe myself to be.
An eagle and a book.
Yes.
You have, as an eagle and a book, transitioned from public service at a senior level. Chief economist is a senior appointment in government.
Yes.
To the private sector. Running by every standard. I wanted to say by Zambian standards, but no, now that I know a little bit about AfriSeed, it's by world-class standards, a serious private sector entity.
By the grace of God.
What allowed you to make that transition?
Wow. For me, of course, it's the passion that I had for agriculture. And also, I think for me, the season had come to an end for me to be where I was in government. Life is meant to be lived in seasons. And when a season comes to an end, you need to be able to notice it, that this is a time for me to leave.
How do you tell?
For me, I think it was just something brewing in me, like a fire, like I need to be somewhere else. And also, if you stay too long in a season, you find that you become ineffective. So when God gives you an opportunity to move on to the next level, it is important that you move on to the next level. And I don't take the experience I had in government for granted. It built me, it structured me somehow, because if I had started business at that time, probably I would have done a bad job. But because the government allowed me to be structured, to be able to look at targets, to be able to set deadlines for myself, and discipline. So for me, it's provided that opportunity, and it was easy for me to transition from government to the private sector. All I needed to do is just, prepare myself adequately so that I can jump on into the next bandwagon, in other words. But the most important thing for me is that as government, it gave me that opportunity, and I'm glad I was able to stay there and make a difference when I had to. Moving to AfriSeed was not an easy task. I had to make so many consultations with my husband, because both of us, of course, were in employment, and one of us needed to come out, take a bold step, and begin to run this business. That is how my husband and I discussed, and I opted to take a long leave from the government and start the business. Thankfully, we were able to partner with other individuals as well as global partners who were looking for companies that were willing to start seed multiplication, because seed multiplication was limited at that time. And there were a lot of shortages of seed, particularly soybean and other legumes. So that is how we saw a market opportunity to be able to invest in that business. When there's a problem, it's an opportunity for you now to solve. So for us, we were very excited that we became part of the solution to be able to invest and supply or provide or make available this seed to the smallholder farmers who are the major market for us.
When you think of it, the two of you, two economists in very successful jobs. You, as chief economist in the Ministry of Finance, and your husband at the central bank, what made you give up what, to us, the outsiders, are incredible jobs, to go and start tilling the land and getting into a new field, specialized field for that matter?
Yes. For me, what made me, like I said earlier, is first of all, the passion. Working and tilling the land has never been easy. And in this country, it's a field that is looked at with as inferior. So for us, it was very courageous that we had to invest in agriculture, which is thought of as a poor man's business. And we decided that let's invest. And by God's grace, we did that. The main goal for us is to be able to feed this nation. That is, those are the questions that we ask ourselves. How can we feed Zambia? And to start feeding Zambia starts with quality seed that we are able to provide to the farmers. Once farmers are able to increase their yield, then we are going to be able to feed this nation. That is from the seed company perspective. So for us, it starts with seed, and quality seed, and making it available to the farmers, possibly closer to where they are, is what keeps us awake every day. That this country can do better by ensuring that we are able to feed our nation. Moving from economics to agriculture, I think the concepts are basically the same. As an economist, you are looking at the limited resources, how you allocate them. It's the same thing with being in business. How do you allocate the limited revenue that you get as a company? And those are the things we are looking at in government. I worked in public finance. Working in public finance, the headache I had is, how do I ensure that government operates efficiently without any challenges? And how do we ensure that we allocate efficiently to the expectations of the taxpayers? So for government, for private sector, it's an opportunity for me to invest, to make sure that the shareholders of this company are happy and they get a better return on their investment at the end of the day. So basically, the concepts are not the same. And the education begins to teach us that these concepts are the same. That's why we go to university, not to know how to just, I end there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to just get a sense of the population that you are serving through AfriSeed. How many farmers are you reaching every planting season?
Season after season, we are reaching over 100,000 smallholder farmers. Like I mentioned earlier, most of the targeted farmers are smallholders. We are reaching over 100,000 farmers with certified seed because we are mainly focused in producing hybrid maize, white maize and orange maize, legumes and oil seeds, which are good for cooking oil or any other, baby foods and stuff like that. But for us, we are not only just looking at maize, we are also investing in legumes, which add soil health. With climate change, we need to also improve our agricultural practices. And smallholder farmers account for 90% of production in this country. So it is a huge market that has to be tapped, and we need to reach them as much as possible so that they are able to also increase their household income and household food security.
Thank you. Mrs. Angomwile, you and your husband are some of the very few couples I know who use their couple power to do good. So you're not just business partners. You also go out into the community out there to express your social responsibility and your faith.
Yes.
Kindly explain to me how this works.
Okay.
The fact that you can share offices, but you can also share your time for prayer, your time to be in the community.
Yes. I think for us, our faith plays a big role. For us, God has placed us in this position for a purpose. And that is to make a difference, not only to make money, but also to use that money to make a difference in people's lives. And that's what I think business is all about. But as an individual, the goal of making money should not be what keeps you, what keeps you, alive or whatever. You should be more like a balanced person to be able to invest your time in other people as well as in serving the community. Corporate social responsibility as a company, we take it very, very seriously. And as a business, we want to always make a difference in the communities where we operate. We enjoy when we hear stories of farmers building their homes or farmers sending their children to school. Those are the stories that excite us, and we want to do more. But outside from that, we use part of our profit to support organizations that reach out to the community, because that's actually true religion. If you can help the widows, if you can help the orphans, that is actually true religion. That is biblical. That we want to continue serving and blessing God in that way.
How did you start doing this? Was it in the university, or was it after you left the Minister of Finance and he left Central Bank? Was it part of the fabric of your early relationship?
No, we had to grow into this kind of, kind of life. As your faith grows, you begin to realize that no, it's not just about me. It's about somebody out there. And the more you serve other people, the more you grow in terms of leadership.
Thank you. And what is your ambition, Mrs. Angomwile? Your highest aspiration for our country?
My highest aspiration for our country is for Zambia to feed its people. This country has a lot of potential, and that potential is still on paper. As a country, we need to move to the next level to be able to tap that potential and use it to better the lives of our people. And most of the challenges or the problems that we face are mainly bread and butter issue, which we can solve by ensuring at least somebody somewhere has something to eat. This country cannot continue to have 50% of its people living below the poverty bottom line, or surviving on $1, less than $1 a day. It's not possible. So how do we do that? So AfriSeed, as a business, we are trying to solve that poverty issue. And we are doing it in a small way with other stakeholders. Thankfully, we have a few global partners who've partnered with us as a company to be able to reach the farmers and most of the rural communities in ensuring at least people have food on the table, not only just maize, but also other foods like protein-rich foods, which can also improve the nutrition of the children.
I appreciate your focus on food, on nutrition, because some of the data we have is absolutely frightening, that there are many children who are so underfed that it doesn't really matter what we do in their lives, they will not develop the capacity to think, to solve problems in their lives. And that's creating a society without a future.
Exactly. And for us, we need to do more. Of course, we are talking with a few other stakeholders. We are talking with the other players in the sector, how we can bring in other nutritious, dense foods so that farmers at household level are able to feed their children. I can give you an example of cowpea. Cowpea is a low-cost protein. It costs less than 500 kwacha to grow cowpea, which is good for both soil health as well as household nutrition. And in the olden days, our mothers used to feed us on such crops. But because people have been modernized to think that cowpea is for the poor, they've actually relegated such foods, outside the food system. So we need to begin to bring such foods. They are climate smart, as well as ensuring that there's nutrition. So we need to begin to bring them back into the food system, and we'll be able to solve the stunting of children as quickly as possible.
Permit me to be cheeky before I ask you the last question. Who was the first person to see the other? Was it you or Mr. Angomwile? And were you classmates in economics programs at UNZA?
I think it was him who saw me.
Tell us more.
Mr. Angomwile we were actually classmates in one of the economics classes. I was in third year, I was in fourth year. So we used to share one economics class, and that's how we met. He used to keep a chair for me every time I'm late for my lecture. You know, UNZA, those days, there was a shortage of furniture. So when you come late, even 5 minutes late for your lecture, just know that you have your class while standing. So he would keep a chair for me, he would go early to class and keep a chair for me and allow me to sit next to him. That's how I met my husband. And if I can also share something that happened, we used to sell eggs while at UNZA. We would buy eggs from Honda Farm and sell them. Then when we have one tray left, we'd say, okay, we'll use it for dinner. When a customer comes, we'd sell that tray and then end up going to the roadside to buy eggs as relish for dinner. So that is how I think probably the business acumen began to come in. But of course, God has a way of, turning some of these things into real passion and passion with profit.
You started applying economics while students of economics. I like that.
And you do it unconsciously, but it's something that you do it unconsciously and you do it so well. Little do you know that in future you'll be able to use such skills.
Wonderful. And my final question, Mrs. Angomwile, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given?
Wow. The best piece of advice I've been given is that you have to be focused. It started with my father when I was a young girl. Being the firstborn, he always told me that you have to be focused so that you can be an example to your siblings. And for sure, I think those words remained with me. The other piece of advice is that I got was to be courageous. And that advice came in a dream. There was a time in my business, in a season when business was so tough. And it's like I was quoting the words that the Lord told Joshua, that be very courageous. And those are the same words that came in my dream. For me, those words have stuck in, and I think have helped me to believe in God, but also act on what I believe. Because I have believed that if I believe in God and I know He's with me, I'll be able to make it no matter the circumstance. If God is for me, nobody can be against me.
And that gives you courage. Thank you.
That gives me a lot of courage.
Thank you. Mrs. Angomwile, I thank you and your husband for role modeling what it takes to put into practice what we learn. When I walked in your office and saw the seeds that you are producing for our farmers, I couldn't believe that people I attended school with were helping not only to create jobs, but also solve some of the critical challenges of our country. Yes. Poverty, hunger, yes. Malnutrition.
Yes.
Thank you for who you are being beyond your business, in your faith, in your interaction with communities.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Having listened to the dialogue and followed my conversation with our guest, I now invite you to look at the drawing that emerged out of that dialogue. Take time to see the contours, the colors, the images that are reflected on the painting, on the drawing. And pay attention to what the drawing evokes in you. What are the feelings? What are the thoughts that are ignited by you looking at the painting? What thoughts does the painting generate in you with regard to your own leadership? What thoughts, feelings, and images does this painting evoke in you with regard to the future of our country? Kindly share your reflections on this channel so that we can continue the dialogue on the future of the country we all love, on the future of our nation. Thank you.